Welcome everyone. Declaration of opening of tonight's ordinary council meeting is made at 5:30 p.m. Welcome everyone. I'm going to get to the preliminaries in a sec, but just a reminder that tonight is a decision-making night. To all the items that were presented last week, we had question and answers and some during the week. All presented to us tonight, and we have to make a decision one way or the other. So we're on page, item number 2 is opening procedures. 2.1 is acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to invite Councillor Mancelli to present the acknowledgement to country.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Shire of Northam acknowledges the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, and embraces the vast Aboriginal cultural diversity throughout Australia. On the land of the Balladong Noongar and Whadjuk Noongar people where we meet, we acknowledge and pay respect to elders past, present. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mancelli. Item 2.2 is recording of council meetings. Members of the council and members of the gallery, that's the public, are advised that this meeting is being live streamed and audio recorded, and it's made available on the Shire of Northam's YouTube channel. If members of the public want to have access to the recording of this meeting, they can do so via the Shire of Northam website. We just got another thing. Item number 3 is attendance. Attendees, councillors. So as usual, I'll start from left to right. Welcome Councillor Williams. Welcome Councillor Hughes. We get to Councillor Polton. Welcome Councillor Mancelli. Myself, President Antonio. Welcome. We've got these mixed up. Welcome Councillor Gurek. Welcome Councillor Ryan. And welcome Councillor Bigland. The staff. We have welcome to all the members of the executive and staff. We have the Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Terrelin, Executive Manager Engineering Services, Mr. Devsich, Executive Manager Development and Community Services, Mr. Hunt, Executive Manager Corporate Services, Mr. Streets, Manager Governance and Risk, Ms. McCall, Governance and Risk Officer, Ms. Blase, and Manager Planning and Environment, Mr. Farnworth. I think that's everyone. I've got it right, everyone's here. So we go to page 7. So item 3.2, apologies. Councillor Polton has advised that he will be running late, so we advise the time when Councillor Polton arrives. 3.3 is approved leave of absence, that is nil. 3.4 absent, that is nil. So we go to page 8. Item number 4 is disclosure of interests. We have a number, so we'll read them out now and then as the item comes up as well. So we have item 13.1.1, lease for lot 1 Great Eastern Highway, Burlong and part of reserve 51213, lots 470 and 471, Northern Districts Motorcycle Club. So President Antonio, that's myself, has declared impartiality. Members of the club are known to President Antonio, and the President has been invited and attended some events at the Northern District Motorcycle Club location. Councillor Hughes has declared indirect financial interest. Councillor Hughes has a daughter with a coffee van and is at times asked to sell coffee by the District's Motorcycle Club. We have 13.3.1. This is proposed scheme amendment number 22, 51 Jacozo Rise 1 Dowie. Councillor Ryan has declared indirect financial interest. A client has recently purchased a home in the estate, so Councillor Ryan will not partake in any questions on that either, because we get questions. So as the questions come up, just have to remember that, or the item itself. Councillor Biglan, same item, has declared impartiality. Councillor Biglan knows several residents at the Lifestyle Village. Then we have 13.3.2, which is proposed scheme amendment 19-264 Chidarian Road 1 Dowie. Councillor Biglan has declared impartiality. Councillor Biglan knows the applicant proposing the scheme amendment, a member from Land Insight. That's how it's written, so that's how I've read it. Councillor Williams has declared impartiality. Some of the people submitting objections are known to Councillor Williams, and Councillor Biglan has also advised that some of the people objected are known to Councillor Biglan. So 13.3.3, proposed scheme amendment 26, residential recording lot 9001, Mitchell Avenue Northam. Councillor Mencheli has declared impartiality. The planning consultant Akron and the vendor are known to Councillor Mencheli. Same item 13.3.3, Councillor Hughes declared impartiality. The owner of Akron and their planning consultant are known to Councillor Hughes. Councillor Williams has declared impartiality. Same item. The owner of planning consultant of the applicant is known to Councillor Williams. President Antonio, that's myself, has declared impartiality. Applicant's consultant is known to President Antonio. Councillors are well aware that as an item comes up, they can declare impartiality. The other ones pertain to behind closed doors, so I'll read them out fully as we get to those items. So we're going to go to page 10, which is item number 5, announcements by the presiding member without discussion. So that is taken as read. So then we go to page 12, which is public questions. So just a reminder to the members of the gallery or the public, there's only 2 sections where you can participate in tonight, and that is item number 6, which is public questions, and item number 8. Just ask, if you're asking a question, can you please make it a question, because there is a place later on where you can make a statement. So we try and keep them separate. When you come up, can you please come up to this microphone, stand and state your name, so it helps with our minutes and everyone knows who you are. Now, I know we may have questions on item 13.3.1. If we do, can you please tell us that so Councillor Ryan can depart at that time? So it's a bit unusual, but we've just got to deal with it that way. So I'll open it up to public questions. I believe we have one to the gentleman on the right. Public questions?
Yeah, sure.
And if you just chuck the microphone on as well, please.
Well, yeah. My name's James Biden. I'm a One Dowie resident, also an architectural designer. I'm wondering about changes to the policy. What does the approval process look like for getting a house approved, and what sort of environmental protections would be in place?
So is this in regarding to 13.3.2, the
Chidarian Road?
Chidarian Road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it makes amendments where it could potentially provide for housing subdivision and later on down the line.
Yep, so what I'll do is I'll just let that question to the officers if that's all right, if you can answer that.
I think the question in terms of this scheme amendment tonight, if it does go through council and then the West Australian Planning Commission and the Minister for Planning will allow potential subdivision in that area that's shown on the map. That's correct. In terms of the approval process, I think it is fairly well documented in the officer's report in terms of the process that they need to go through in terms of structure planning, subdivision approval. That following. Is there a specific question that you have that I haven't answered? I think.
Yeah. What would someone have to do to get an approval, and what sort of protections to the environment are there in place related to that?
So in terms of, depending on, that's a very difficult question to answer, but in terms of the process, are you referring to the environmental conservation zone?
Yes.
Okay. So the The amendment that's before council tonight will potentially allow a dwelling to be approved in the environmental conservation zone. There is a number of other land uses that can already be approved in that zone. But the process would be, as per in the scheme amendment document, would be required to be located in a building envelope, which is generally separated from separated from the permanent vegetation site. So they have to go through a development approval process for a single house.
So planning approval would be required.
That's right.
Yeah. And how is that building envelope being determined to protect the nature already existing?
Yeah, the building envelopes are generally done through the structure planning and subdivision process. So it's a lot more detailed in terms of mapping vegetation, etc. So at the moment, this is a zoning change, and then the further detailed information comes through the structure planning and subdivision stages.
Is there further public questions? Oh, Sally, you almost got me there. So no further public questions. So we do come up with in 2 seconds just about when the public can make a statement. So then we're on item number 7, which is response to previous public questions taken on notice. That is nil. Then item number 8 is receiving of petitions, presentations and deputations. 8.1 petitions is nil. 8.2 presentations is nil. 8.3 deputations. We do have one from Mr. Thomas. I'll just invite you up.
Thank you. I don't like looking down on councillors.
Sorry, might be a capital line. Sorry, Mr. Thomas, I just.
Sorry,
I
I'm
can just.
getting kicked out. Councillors, the residents appreciate Aspen's recent written clarification that existing site agreements will not be impacted. However, the correspondence also confirms that development may proceed under group dwelling provisions, because building on the ground is not permitted under the caravan park framework. Replacing relocatable park homes with group dwellings changes the land use from park home park model to a more conventional higher density residential development, which is moving further away from the traditional park home model. And that is a structural difference. Sierra operates a long-stay residential park where residents hold site agreements under the Residential Parks Long-Stay Tenants Act of 2006, which governs the security of tenure and residence protections. While current agreements may remain unchanged, Council's decision governs the future structure of the village, including how future homes are constructed and under what legislative framework future residents may form. Group dwellings sits within a different planning pathway that raises legitimate questions about the long-term legislative and structural context of the village. Residents are not opposing improvement or growth. However, where the underlying framework may evolve, prudence suggests that clarity and formal certainty should precede amendment approval. Accordingly, the residents respectfully ask that the amendment not proceed in its current form without clearer structural safeguards for existing and future residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Put the chair back.
Oh, no, sorry, Councillor Bigland, is there another statement on the same item, or is the other statement on the other item? Yours is on 13.3.2, isn't it? Is there any other statements on 13.3.1? If not, then I'll grab Councillor Roberts, then Councillor Bigland. Thank you. Just invite you up, sir, to make your statement.
I'll take a seat as well.
Don't get your name, please.
Yeah, sure. Councillors, President, thank you for your time. My name is Lee Dane. I represent Callus Environmental, and I'm the consultant for the Scheme River 19, which is explored Jark Road Valley. Before I continue, I also want to acknowledge the Dalagong that we are meeting on and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge their continuing connection to this land. I want to start with giving you a bit of background myself. I spent the last 12 years of my professional life working with the Department of Biodiversity Conservation and Attractions in the Conservation Covenant Program and coordinating the program from there. I've spoken to hundreds of landholders across the Southwest, and I've been involved in reviewing and providing feedback, conservation, scientific advice for hundreds of developments ranging from small field subdivisions to weird hotels in the middle of nowhere. The last 2 years, I've also worked in an Aboriginal corporation as part of the Southwest Native Title Zone. And my remit there was to look after 26,000 square kilometres of land and sea with the hopes of protecting land and water for our people. So when I come before you and say that we have considered the environmental and cultural aspects of this proposed rezoning from rural to rural residential and environmental conservation zone, I can say from professional and from my own personal values that we certainly have. Now, I don't need to sit here and tell you about the social benefits of this proposed rezoning. We all know that we're in a housing crisis and residential land is becoming more and more scarce. And there's also been this increased trend from Perthians, I suppose, to move away and have a nice life in the regions. I don't also have to tell you about the economic benefits of this proposed rezoning, the hundreds of jobs that it will create and the injection it will have into the local and regional economy. But I do need to elaborate on the environmental and cultural factors that are part of this proposal. I want to acknowledge the questions raised by councillors, raised by the public, and particularly those who've been brave enough to stand before you and answer in person. They're good questions, they're important questions, and it's actually really encouraging to hear from the public this push for better environmental protections. And in my time, I've seen so many developments which neglect our biodiversity and the intrinsic values that biodiversity brings, both from a mental health, physical health perspective, as well as just for pure enjoyment. But I can assure you that we are conducting the appropriate and necessary studies to ensure that any clearing of native vegetation is minimised to areas which are considered degraded. For example, we've completed the foreshore assessment, which has identified that areas along Coates Gully and the tributary of Warraloo Brook will not be developed. In fact, even more, there's recommendations in that report to improve the vegetation. And I'm not just talking about fencing to keep livestock out, which the landholder is already doing. This is weed control, feral animal control, and revegetation with native plants. So already we're seeing with this proposal an improvement in our environment. We're also minimising the footprint of developments to ensure that building envelopes are placed in existing cleared areas where possible, but also to ensure that they're set back from the vegetation to minimise any clearing needed for fire mitigation. And we are also protecting these areas of remnant vegetation using conservation companies, which is my background. And these areas will be protected in perpetuity, and they will add an additional 26 conditions on top of those that are already imposed under the Environmental Conservation Zone and the local planning scheme. So we're really enhancing the protection of the remnant vegetation on the site. Not only will there be greater protection, but I believe that this rezoning will increase stewardship of the area. And what do I mean by that? Right now, we've got one landholder looking after this property, managing this property as a rural zone property, as he should. And there's no impetus for him really to do any further works on the conservation areas except for to fence them off and keep livestock out. But with this rezoning and future development, we will see a community being established that looks after bushland. We'll go from one landholder to several landholders who care for the bushland, who want to care for the bushland, who want to enhance it. These bushwalks will target a certain market where the landholders are looking for their bit of paradise, their bit of wildflowers and wildlife. Furthermore, it will increase the chances of compliance. I can tell you from my experience that if you are not doing the right thing, your neighbours will tell the authorities. And finally, we recognise that there are two culturally significant sites within this proposal, an artefact site and a wetland site. Now, the property sits within the Wadjuk Indigenous Land Use Agreement area, and so it's only fitting, and the client recognises that these areas should be returned back to the Wadjuk Aboriginal Corporation, to be managed and controlled as they see fit. I've never seen anything like this in my time working professionally. I've spoken to prominent Wadjuk elders and they've never heard of this. Not only that, we'll be using local Noongar rangers to do the land management, the weed control, animal control, replanting. So really, this project will be a huge step towards reconciliation, healing the country, healing the community. Hopefully, I've been able to paint a better picture of our aspirations for the area and highlight the environmental and cultural benefits that this potential rezoning will bring, in addition to the social and economic outcomes. And hopefully we'll have enough support. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Just wanted to double check before I move on, there was no further deputations? No further.
I need to provide notice.
No, if you'd like to make one about 9 tonight.
Do you need that? And what I'm looking at, I'll be brief. I have a degree in environmental science, and I greatly respect all the questions and the previous deputation. Just, I guess my comments or thoughts are, and I love, it sounds good, that plan for the Chattering Road, this is regarding the Chattering Road development. That sounds great, but why does that, and it sounds like there's plans to care for the land, then why does it need to be changed to allow development in the environmental conservation zones? And even if that is allowed, why does that, why does that need to be allowed for all of the environmental conservation zones across the Shire? All those things that Donovan said can happen, but I just don't think that you need to allow development in the environmental conservation zones across the whole Shire. And the question before that was asked at the start, the building envelope will be quite large because of the potential for it to be a high bushfire risk area if there is development. And even if maybe, let's say, no development is planned in the environmental conservation zones for the Chattering Road development, in the future and in other sites, that may be the case. And if you read some of the submissions from government agencies, they say that allowing this to happen will mean that the entire lot can be cleared. So, and yeah, that's just, and I think that's something that needs to be considered, because it's all well and good to say, you know, the future owners of the lots will care for the bushland, and maybe they will, but at the end of the day they don't have control. Or even if they do have control over maybe what's in their backyard of their lot, they don't have it over other sites. So I just don't really see the justification for the development in environmental conservation zones and the removal of the requirement for DBCA advice, which is proposed. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Balfour Cunningham. So, yeah, last time, no further deputations. No, so then we're still on page 13. We had a deputation from Ms. Douglas last week, so that's why it's still in the agenda. So we have item number 9, applications for leave of absence as written. Councillor Mancelli is moving. Councillor Hughes is seconding. Is there anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 7-0, that's carried. So then we go to page 14. Item number 10 is confirmation of minutes. 10.1 is confirmation of minutes from the ordinary council meeting held 28 January 2026. Councillor Williams is moving. Councillor Mancelli is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 7-0, that's carried. We now go to page 117. So item 10.2 is confirmation of minutes from the annual meeting of electors held 28 January 2026. Councillor Girak is moving. Councillor Bigland is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 7-0, that's carried. Then we go to page 268. So before I ask for a mover and a seconder, this is 1.3, notes from the council forum meeting held last Wednesday, the 18th of February 2026. It is a new item, so I'll see if there's any queries or clarifications from the note from the forum meeting. No. So can I have a mover and a second? Yes. Councillor Hughes has moved. Councillor Ryan being Councillor Girak. Councillor Ryan has seconded. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. 7-0, that's carried. Now we go to page 305. This is when item number 11, we've got items brought forward for the convenience of those in the public gallery. So I advise most members of the public in the gallery that I'm bringing all the items of interest forward. Just a reminder, I didn't say it before, so it's a refresher, that as your item is dealt with, you're quite able to leave the meeting without reference to me or anyone else. You're also quite welcome to stay and enjoy our hospitality. So we're going to go to 13.1.1, which is on page 305. But just a reminder that Councillor Hughes has declared indirect financial interest in this item. So we'll be leaving the room. President Antonio, that's very partiality. So as President Antonio has declared impartiality interest in this item, he declares that he will consider this matter on its merit and vote accordingly. Councillor Hughes cannot take. So we're going to page 306, I believe. I said 305, it should be 306. So we start on page 306, and just a reminder, this is 13.1.1, lease for Lot 1, Great Eastern Highway, Burlong, part of Reserve 51213, lots 470 and 471, Northern Districts Motorcycle Club. Recommendations on page 313 and 314. Councillor Ryan is moving, Councillor Girak is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 6-0, that's carried. No, Amy, I will stay, I'll go. I know what your answer will be. Appreciate it. Then we're going to Councillor Hughes is back. So we're going to go to page 387. So item 13.3, well, we're going to do all these. So 13.3, Development and Community Services. 13.3.1, proposed scheme amendment number 2251, Jacozo Rise Mondowie. Councillor Ryan has declared indirect financial interests, so he will not partake in any debate or decision making. And Councillor Biglan has declared impartiality and impartiality interest in this item. Councillor Biglan declares that the item will be considered on its merit and will vote accordingly. 387 and the recommendation is on page 394 and 395. Councillor Mencelli
I'll move the recommendation as presented by the officers.
is moving that. We have a seconder. Councillor Gira.
Debate.
Councillor Gira is moving. Is there going to be anyone who speaks against the motion? Just want to check no and no amendments or anything like that. No?
Can I speak against? Yes.
You can speak against it, can't you? If you'd like, but I'll have to go to Councillor Mencelli first. So, Councillor Mencelli.
Yes, Mr. President, I think it's fairly clearly articulated in the recommendation what the requirements are. This is only the first stage, basically, of the scheme amendment, and there's a lot of work to be done pursuant to this particular meeting. Yes, there's some concerns about tenure and stuff like that, but there's a quantum shift from the transportable type structures that are there now to site-built homes, and to me that clearly indicates that you know, it's going to become a permanent fixture in the immediate area. So I'd encourage my fellow councillors to support the recommendation as presented by the staff who have put in a considerable amount of work on this, and the consultants. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gira.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councillor Mencelli. In principle, I am supporting the scheme amendment to provide housing opportunities to more residents within our shire, and also to provide some investment and construction opportunities and activities around the Wanneroo area. I'm not overly concerned the environmental considerations either, as they will be put in place in the future. And also I acknowledge the wider benefit of the whole community of this development. However, my concerns are in support of the current residents. The Park Home Park and the independent living scheme changes are quite different, so it will definitely change the living standards and living expectations of the people who bought into that current development. And also I'm concerned about how the 45 plus age restriction will be enforced, and if it cannot be enforced, would that be fair on current residents? Also, I've got another concern regarding the current abattoir and the removal of the 500-meter barrier from the abattoir. I'm not sure if that will be causing future concerns and impact and complaints, which the Shire might will have to deal with, because I don't think it is fair on the current industry to have residential properties that close people might buy into these blocks not actually realizing what the future impact is, even if it's declared. So that's my other concern. I would not like to have the industry who is providing jobs, and it's been there for quite a long time, be affected by this development. So I urge councillors to consider and perhaps not this scheme amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any further speakers for? Any further speakers against? No. Councillor Mancelli, have right of reply.
Yes, Mr. President. I think I've said that everything I need to say on this particular proposal, the scheme amendment, and it is only a scheme amendment at this point in time. There's a lot of work to be done in the background in regard to this particular development. It's a fairly grand proposal, and I do appreciate the concern around the 500-metre buffer around the effluent lagoons, and it was a real bone of contention when it actually went in many years ago, and the 500-metre buffer was included for good reason, I think. But I'm sure our people within state government will make the right decision. Ultimately, this has got to go before the minister, who will approve the scheme amendment, and then, as I said right at the outset, there'll be a lot of work in behind all of this to get a beautiful little development out there. And yes, I did stipulate that it'll become a permanent fixture in the area with site-built housing. And yes, the people that have purchased the transportable housing that has been introduced to the site live in very good accommodation, I might add. And I don't think the site-built homes will be much better. It might be double brick or brick and iron or whatever. But the structures that are already there serve a very useful purpose, and I'm sure they will endure for the duration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mancelli. So now we'll put Councillor Mancelli's motion. So all those in favour by a show of hands. 3. All those against. 3. One deciding vote. We'll go with the officer's recommendation. So it's carried. Deciding vote. We'll now move to page 604. We'll get Councillor Ryan back, sorry. Councillor Ryan, there was debate on that motion. Was there interest? It was 3-3, and the presiding member used his vote to pass the motion. Just so we know. So we go to page 604. So 13.3.2, proposed scheme amendment 19, 264 Jadarian Road, 1 Dowie. Just a reminder that both councillors Bignam and Councillor Williams declared impartiality. So as both councillors have declared impartiality interest in this item, both councillors declare that they will consider the matter on its merit and vote accordingly. 3.3.2 has a recommendation going over page 612, 613, 614 and 615. Councillor Shelley? Councillor Shelley, sorry, still moving.
Mr. President, I'll move the officer's recommendation on this particular item.
Councillor Shelley is moving. Councillor Gierak is seconding. Is there going to be anyone? Councillor Williams?
Thank you. I would like to move an amendment.
Yes, certainly.
Wording.
Make sure councillors just so for the recording, so we've got the correct wording.
Read that, I can't see it. That the following words be removed from the motion. It's actually part B. Amending table 1 zoning table to include single house and ancillary dwelling as discretionary D land use classes in the environmental conservation zone as follows. And that was to remove that. So it will remain as an S use on the zoning table.
Clear to councillors? So to proceed, I need a seconder for that. So just for the amendment to proceed. So if you need to clarify what that means, I'm just looking at councillors' faces, so I'll just clarify. So Councillor Williams, I think you might be able to explain it, is that all right?
Yes. Sorry. Okay. So it's basically on acknowledging the rest of it as a valid thing, but I would like to see the environmental conservation table, the ability to build houses, residential single houses and ancillary dwelling removed, so that the environmental conservation zone cannot have residential dwellings built on it. Apart from that, everything else remains the same.
Councillor Gierek is seconding that amendment. So is there any speakers against that proposed amendment?
President,
Yep, question, councillor.
if I may seek advice from the planning department, the executive manager of development services on this particular amendment. What are the likely impacts? It's off the table altogether. Is that right?
It goes back to what the current zone in terms of the land use permissibility, go back to the current situation, which is the excuse in zone. So in this particular case, I don't think we have an effect on this particular rezoning because they have got areas outside the environmental conservation zone that includes that. So yeah, but you would go back to the basic status quo of what is in the scheme at the moment.
Supplementary question through the President, if I may. How many lots will be impacted by this particular amendment? Roughly, sorry.
Well, in terms of the current proposal, I think it's about four lots that will be affected.
Only 4.
Correct. But the 4 lots that they have identified on the I guess the indicative subdivision plan that's in the agenda, they will have areas outside that are already clear that are not in that conservation zone.
So is there any councillor likely to speak against Councillor Wynn's proposed amendment? Question, yes, sorry, Councillor Bigler.
Sorry, could we just bring up the map relevant to the areas that we're taking out and if we could be please solve them on the map?
Is that the map you're
No, it's another one.
More detailed map, so
It should be a zoning scheme now.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 for 3 on it.
Yeah.
I think, Mr. Palmer, you might be able to answer this. Councillor Biggins' question is, with this proposed amendment, what difference would it make to the proposed development?
To the boss. So there'll be no change at all in relation to what this project is seeking to achieve in terms of the development outcome. Essentially, the subdivision and the concept plan, as you've seen, creates a smaller rural residential block at each of these points and includes their backyard effectively being a portion of the very large area. So that the actual lot of that two zones, the rural residential zone, which will be where they live, and then they'll have this very large balanced area, which will be the conservation zone. And there's no proposed development per se in that. So there'll be no change to the zoning scheme, map. There's no change to their project. But as the deputation made clear, the introduction of change from X not permitted to B discretion would be a general effect across the Shire, where people propose to put a dwelling into that space. At the present, you do have only 4 limited uses you have in there. You have art gallery, caretaker dwelling, for civic use for community purpose.
My follow-up question is, those 4 that you mentioned would still be able to be in that, those 4 would still be able to be in that.
On this lot, for instance, that's the environmental conservation zone area. There's a section at the front that will be zoned rural residential, but it'll all be one big lot. So the area at the front will be rural residential and cleared, so yeah, where the houses go. So we have no impact on those existing proposed environmental conservation zones.
And that's what Councillor Williams' amendment. Yeah, so I just want to clarify that for everyone, Councillor Williams. I hope that. So further questions on that? But then we've got the amendment, so is there anyone likely to speak against Councillor Williams' proposed amendment? If there's no one speaking against it, we'll put that to vote. All those in favour of the amendment, by a show of hands. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against, got to do it. 6, 1, that's carried. So that amendment now becomes a substantive motion. So the substantive motion, that was moved by Councillor Mencheli, Councillor Girac. So now everyone's aware that that amendment is now the substantive motion. That's Councillor Mencheli's motion. Is there anyone likely to speak against that? So we're clear that that amendment is now the substantive motion. It's Councillor Mencheli's. So no, there's no speakers against. All those in favour by a show of hands. That's 7-0. That's carried. Thank you all for your input on that one. So now we go to page 717. So we have item 13.3, proposed scheme amendment 26, residential recording, lot 9001, Mitchell Ave Northern. Apologies. So just a reminder. So we have that Councillor Mencheli, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Williams and President Antonio have all declared impartiality interest in this item. All councillors declare that they will consider the matter on its merit and vote accordingly. So 13.3.3, we have the recommendation on page 722. I can see Councillor Mencheli is going to move that. Councillor Girac, then Councillor Hughes. Councillor Girac is seconded. So anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands? That's 7-0, that's carried. So just a reminder, the members of the public, you're quite welcome to stay or go because most of those items have been dealt with. So you'll be brought forward for convenience of you. So then we go back to page 305. So item number 12 is reports of committee meetings is nil. And then we've done all of the items 13, the CEO's office. So that's correct. We go to page 387. Sorry? Policy reviews, my apologies.
Yes.
So we've got page 335. There's one CEO's office. We have page 335, 13.1.2 council policy reviews. Recommendations on page 338. There's the first item. There's two. Councillor Hughes is moving. Councillor Gear is seconding. Anyone like to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 7-0, that's carried. And there's a second recommendation on page 338. Councillor Williams is moving, thank you. Councillor Ryan is seconding. So anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 7-0, that's carried. Thank you for reminding me about that one. So we've done on page 387, 13.2 is engineering services. There's no items in that. We've done 13.3.1, 13.3.2 and 13.3.3. So we go to page 762. So item 13.4, corporate services, 13.4.1. The council statement for the council January 2026. Councillor Gierek has moved. Councillor Ryan has seconded. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by show of hands. That's 7-0, that's carried. Then we go to page 806. So 13.4.2 financial statements for the period ending 31st December 2025 and 31st January 2026. Page 808 and 809 is a recommendation. Councillor Hughes is moving. Councillor Ryan is seconding. Anyone likely to speak against? So all those in favour by a show of hands. That's 7-0, that's carried. Now we're going to go to page 850. Can I get a mover for this new course? Councillor Mincelli has moved. Councillor Vera has seconded. There's a recommendation on page 850. There's a essential the vote. All those in favour for a show of hands. Thank you for everything. That's 7-0, that's carried. Recording back on, all right? I think someone else was going to come on. So, members of the gallery or members of the public, we had the items behind closed doors. The first one was 14.1, sale of recovery of unpaid rates. There was a recommendation to council that Council 1 authorises the Chief Executive Officer to issue a property seizure and sale order on land for A10888 in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995. Item 2 authorises the Chief Executive Officer to issue a property seizure and sale order on land for A11126, including the owner's 2 commercial properties in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995. Item 3, pursuant to section 6.6.4 1B of the Local Government Act 1995, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to take possession of A10694, which has rates in arrears for more than 3 years. Item 4, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to dispose of A10694 in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995 by public auction with the reserve price set at 100% of the outstanding debt. That was carried 7-0. Then we have item 14.2, application under CP.29 rates hardship. There was a recommendation that council approves the payment arrangement of $100 per month for the current owner of A10626 until 30 June 2026. That was carried 7-0. Item 14.3, legal action for recovery of unpaid service charges. The recommendation was that council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to refer the properties identified in attachment 14.3.1 for the issuance of a general procedure claim and judgment in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995 for recovery of outstanding service charges. That was carried 7-0. 14.4 was legal action for recovery of unpaid rates. There was a recommendation that council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to refer the properties identified in attachment 14.4.1 for the issuance of a general procedure claim and judgment in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995 for non-payment of rates and charges. That was carried 7-0. We moved out from behind closed doors and that was carried 7-0. So we are on page 49 of our substantive agenda. It's part 1. So we have item number 15. Motion to which previous notice has been given is nil. Item 16 is urgent business approved by decision. That is nil. Item 17, declaration of closure is made at 6:29 p.m. I'd like to thank members of the gallery and public for their questions and involvement. Thank the officers for their ever professionalism and answering questions. And thanks councillors for